Good evening. I'm Bob Davidson. I would like to welcome you to the 7th Annual Davidson Fellows Awards ceremony in this beautiful room. The Davidson Institute for Talent Development, our parent organization, is a national nonprofit organization that recognizes and supports profoundly gifted young people. As co-founder, the other co-founder being Jan, my wife, she couldn't make it this evening. She had a little bit of bronchitis, and that's not a good thing to fly with, so we're going to wing it without her. She really wanted to be here. But as co-founder, I'm proud to be here tonight in this Library of Congress to share the accomplishments of 17 very highly talented, highly motivated, and very determined young people. Thanks for being here tonight to share in this ceremony. For 7 years in a row, we express our thanks to Senator Harry Reid of our home state of Nevada. It's not Nevada, it's Nevada. And Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa for co-sponsoring this event. We've had some folks visit. Unfortunately, some of them have already had to leave. Congressman Frelinghuysen from New Jersey was here to say hello. And he has, I think, 3 other receptions to attend tonight or something like that. I have a few other people I'd like to recognize, or at least one more I'd like to recognize. I think some of them might be a little late, so they're going to miss their recognition. For several years in a row now, Laura Vanderkam, who's co-author of our book, Genius Denied, How to Stop Wasting Our Brightest Young Minds, is here tonight. So, Laura, you're out there someplace. Laura participated with us today on working on a new project that we have. I'd like to introduce my co-presenter tonight, who's Colleen Harson, director of the Davidson Academy of Nevada. She used to be director of all our operations in the Institute, but she's now moved to our academy. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard about that. She'll be joining me tonight to present the awards. Colleen?
Thank you, Bob. The purpose of the Davidson Fellows Award is to recognize and reward the extraordinary achievements of young people, and to encourage these students to continue to make a positive difference and to inspire other young people to pursue their passions. Each year, we receive applications from all over the country, from students who dedicate months and in many cases years to their work. Applications are reviewed by an independent team of judges from across the country with expertise in specific subject areas. Mathematics, science, technology, music, literature, philosophy, and outside the box are all represented as categories for fellows to apply for. This year, the Davidson Institute is recognizing 5 Davidson Fellow laureates who will each receive $50,000 scholarships. There are also 12 Davidson Fellows, 6 of whom will receive $25,000 scholarships, and 6 who will receive $10,000 scholarships. We will begin by honoring this year's Davidson Fellows, who are each receiving a scholarship for $10,000. Bob?
Okay, thanks, Colleen. The first fellow I'd like to introduce to you is Richard Alt, the second, a 17-year-old from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Rich, will you come up and tell us about your project? This one is fascinating.
Certainly, Mr. Davidson. My esteemed fellows and colleagues, I am honored to be here today to accept my Davidson Fellows Award for my research project in seasonal snowfall forecasting. From the earliest years of my life, I have developed and nurtured an uncommon passion for scientific research, motivated by an unerring love for our natural world and by the steadfast motivation of my parents and my God. I brought my plans full circle, laying out a new and innovative method of seasonal forecasting in my project, a comparison of 3 seasonal snowfall forecasting methods for the winter of 2004-2005. In this prodigious work, I tested 3 different forecasting methods for accuracy in predicting seasonal snowfall, then synthesized the results into a unique new forecasting system that can be used anywhere in the world, applied universally, wherever there are sufficient climatological data records available. by combining seasonal climate data on the local scale with global indices and the output of the most powerful modern computer models, a new system of forecasting emerges, giving the seasonal forecaster an entirely new angle on which to base his prognosis. Such experiments stand to benefit virtually every segment of modern society, from departments of transportation to small-town farmers and ranchers to the energy traders of Wall Street. All can improve efficiency and save lives with more accurate and reliable seasonal forecasts. Through years of experimentation, I have developed a wide range of scientific interests. This year, I will be conducting additional research projects on the health effects of lead pollution and also on the viability of carbon sequestration as a method to mitigate climate change. I plan to use my Davidson Fellows Scholarship to pursue a degree in biomedical engineering at a nationally renowned university. Throughout my collegiate education, I plan to continue researching a variety of topics with a new focus on the world of medicine. Finally, I would like to thank all those who have so graciously assisted me in compiling this project. First and foremost, to my mother and father, both of whom have stood behind me every step of the way. I can truthfully say that I would not be here today without them. Second, to all my mentors and evaluators, Dr. Stephen J. Colucci of Cornell University, Dr. Eugene De Silva of the Commonwealth Governor's School, and Dr. Mary Frances George of Stafford High School, who dedicated so much of their time and effort to my development as a scientist. And third, to all my grandparents, cousins, and teachers who have helped to plant in me the strength and motivation that has led me here tonight. And finally, and most importantly, I give my most sincere thanks to Bob and Jan Davidson for bestowing upon me this incredible honor. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Our next fellow, Christina Beasley, is a 17-year-old young woman from Vienna, Virginia. Christina, please tell us about your fellow's literature portfolio.
The title of my project is An Experiment in Free Speech, and it was submitted into the literature category of the competition. This collection is meant to explore the relationship between human sensory and emotional perception and the concept of beauty, to take everyday, monotonous feelings, as well as the more tumultuous side of the spectrum, and relate them to how society rationally and sometimes irrationally reacts to stimuli, and in turn, its opinion in retrospect. I analyzed this relationship in a variety of fashions, from critical analysis of other writers' literature to my own response through creative writing to an assortment of experiences. This compilation exists as an instrument against the apathy that has become remarkably prevalent in modern society, and in showing the beauty that is hidden but quite present in each second of the human experience, it attempts to reconnect the reader with the inherent loveliness of every aspect of their corporeality. Ultimately, this collection is meant to show the insuppressible beauty of being and of reflection upon being. I intend on using the scholarship money to further develop my abilities as a writer through my college education, and I would love to thank my nominators, Judy Bello, Emily Orser, and Allison Joseph, for their incredible guidance in this endeavor. And of course, thank you to my family, as well as everyone at the Davidson Institute for making this possible. Thank you.
Billy Dormany is a 15-year-old young man from McDonough, Georgia. Billy, come up and tell us about your technology project.
Well, that was an auspicious start. My technology project is entitled Improper Fractional Base Encryption. Essentially, I created a new method of keeping messages secret, using a mathematical concept that hadn't been considered before I came along. This method integrates a subliminal channel where an extra secret message can be hidden so it can't even be proven to exist. This encryption method opens up a whole new area of encryption research using these improper fractional bases, so I'm really excited about where I can take this. I can use this encryption method in, say, whole disk encryption, mathematical hash functions, pseudo-random number generators, or in other security-related areas. Future discoveries in the same vein could result in additional secure encryption or compression methods, error-correcting mechanisms, and watermarking, keeping your data secure. My parents made this possible by homeschooling me and giving me the freedom to explore what I wanted to explore, even though they are not scientists, engineers, or PhDs, unfortunately. They have enabled me to make contacts with people that I find interesting. When I farmed when I was younger, I wrote to Dr. Carol Depp, the author of a layman's seed breeding book. She gave me examples of people whose excellence was not preceded by a college degree. This gave me the courage to pursue difficult interests without being intimidated by my lack of formal education. Once we found the art of problem-solving online school for math, I was able to find contacts with my interests nationwide. Mr. Richard Vusick, one of my nominators and my primary math instructor, has a passion for interest-directed studies, just like the Davidsons, which echoes my mother's ideal of delight-directed education. He has always encouraged me to pursue even my wildest ideas. Thanks, Mr. Vusick. My other nominators, Rocky Verser and Dr. Tim Clark, are parents of friends of mine who are also national competitors along with me at Math Counts or Word Power. Mr. Verser wrote the program that won the first RSA Challenge, an encryption cracking contest. He has been a bottomless well of constructive criticism. Thank you, Mr. Verser, for reading my epic emails. Dr. Clark suggested the original application of my fractional base ideas to encryption. I don't really think that he thought it could be done, but it would keep me busy for a while and it would keep him out of his inbox. It was a year and a half before I actually met Dr. Clark in person this May during ISEF in Albuquerque, his hometown. Thank you, Dr. Clark. And finally, I'd like to thank the Davidsons for recognizing my work. The Davidsons and their army of judges were able to see beyond what is expected from normal teens and recognize work that has been independently generated and deeply thought through. I really appreciate the encouragement. People are so much more connected because of the internet than ever before, and I'm thankful to live in this age. Thank you very much. Yeah!
Our next Davidson Fellow, Shannon Lee, is a 14-year-old young woman from Plano, Texas. Shannon, please tell us about your Fellow's music portfolio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored to be here today as a 2007 Davidson Fellow. My portfolio is called Creating a Musical Bond in the category of music. One of the most rewarding things about playing music is sharing it with an audience. Performing is a very special form of communication for me because I really enjoy playing for people and giving the audience a message through a memorable experience through the music. Through performing, I hope to keep musical traditions alive by sharing the music of many composers to inspire and uplift audiences. This November, I'm really looking forward to going to Europe for the first time, where I'll be playing the Sibelius Violin Concerto with the Nuremberg Philharmonic and Maestro Christoph Perek. In April, I made a recording of several short pieces with piano for Telearch International Corporation, and I'm really excited about its release next year. I would like to thank my nominators because without them it would not have been possible to receive this award. First, I'd like to thank Maestro Giancarlo Guerrero, I first played with him in 2004 when he guest conducted the Dallas Symphony on a Texas tour, and this May I had the opportunity to play with him again with his orchestra in Eugene, Oregon. I'm also grateful to David Cerrone, president of the Cleveland Institute of Music, who I studied with for the past 2 summers at the Encore School for Strings in Hudson, Ohio. And last but not least, Jean-Marc Sloman is the Principal Associate Concertmaster of the Dallas Symphony and has been a great mentor to me. And, I've been studying with him since I was 8, and I've learned so much from him about classical music and playing the violin. I'd also like to thank Debbie Austin for playing piano with me in this project, and my parents for their unending support. It's an incredible honor to be named a Davidson Fellow and be recognized with so many other talented people. And I'm very grateful for this scholarship, which will help me tremendously for college. Thank you.
Schaik is a 16-year-old young man from Columbia, South Carolina. Graham, come up and tell us about your science project.
Good evening. The title of my project is Pyrethroid Pesticides and Their Potential to Promote Breast Cancer and Neurodegeneration. I researched pyrethroids, which are chemicals that are active ingredients in home use and agricultural use pesticides, and are also used on over 30 different commercial crops that are grown for our mass consumption, because I was concerned. I determined that amounts of these chemicals could be retained in the fruits and vegetables that we're eating, as well as retained in lung tissue when our homes and around our children and our families are being sprayed with these chemicals. And I also found that amounts of these chemicals that are being retained are able to elicit signs of neurodegeneration, specifically neurite retraction, as well as cancer, breast cancer, with cell proliferation. Research is a passion of mine, and the generous scholarship that provided to me by Mr. and Mrs. Davidson will allow me to further my education to the postgraduate level. The motivation of my research to research pyrethroids was my grandmother. She was ill, and she showed me that perseverance in research, what that can truly achieve. My research did show significant cell proliferation, a sign of cancer, as well as significant neurite retraction, a sign of neurodegenerative diseases. What we're putting into our environment needs to be at the forefront of all of our environmental issues, both at the local and global level. Just as we're exploring alternate fuel sources, we need to be looking at alternative pesticides as well. I hope to be a part of the solution that safely leads our global population, safely feeds our global population while caring for our planet's environment. I would like to thank my parents for putting not just my education first in their lives, but for putting my curiosity and love of learning at the forefront, even as a preschooler. My parents have constantly modeled a life of intellectual curiosity, and I know I would not be standing here today without their humor, patience, and encouragement. I never would have thought the evening over 10 years ago when I proudly printed my Math Blaster Mission Accomplished certificate that I would one day have the honor to be in the same room with its creator. And in fact, I still have that certificate with me and would love it if you would sign it for me, Mr. Davidson. And in case all of you want your own, I brought the disc along. So hang out room. If you want to put it on your computers, I have it. Thank you. This is an incredible thrill. When I read about the Davidson Fellows Program prior to competing, I never would have dreamed that I could be part of such an illustrious and impressive group as the peers and my fellow Davidson Fellows. Congratulations to you all. I cannot tell you how humbled I feel to have even been selected to be part of this group. The belief that Mr. and Mrs. Davidson have motivated and gifted students in the United States, and their tireless work on behalf of them and those of us here in this room will make a difference. and I would like to say thank you to both of you. When I read their book, Genius Denied, I identified all too well with some of the frustrations they cited. Motivated students have in the classroom, and you all have felt it as well. I lived many of those frustrations myself, and I hope someday that elementary students, middle school students, and high school students can be placed in classes according to their proficiency level, not just their age. Learning opportunities based on proficiencies would certainly be more fun, more invigorating, more challenging, and without a doubt, helpful to America's future. Thank you.
Our next fellow, Nora Shoe, is a 17-year-old young woman from Naperville, Illinois. Nora, please tell us about your fellow's science project.
Good evening, everyone. My project was entitled Modeling of X-ray Scattering for Nanocrystalline Superlattice Multilayer Thin Films. These films, which I'll refer to as nanocrystal multilayers from now on, are just essentially very thin films whose layers are composed of nanocrystals. So the nanocrystals are the building blocks. And the purpose of my project was to develop a method to find out what the internal crystal structure is like of these thin films. Because they're so thin, I keep on repeating that, I'm sorry, and also because they're a nanomaterial, you can't directly apply conventional X-ray scattering theory to find out the structure. So to solve this, I proposed a model that allowed us to calculate the theoretical X-ray scattering intensities and to use that to further determine what the crystal structure is like. Now, more generally, this method and this model are useful in aiding the future development of these nanocrystal multilayers, and specifically to this project, the gold nanocrystals considered have already shown applications in making just photosynthetic materials and also as a vector to deliver drugs to cancer tumors. That being said, I thoroughly enjoyed this project, and it was probably the best 2 years of my life while I was working on it. Right now, I'm attending Princeton University as a freshman, where I hope to major in physics. That's also where this scholarship is going. And I definitely hope to have more physics research in my future. And I really would like to thank my family for their endless support and just encouragement throughout my entire life, as well as my mentor, Dr. Jin Wang, for his time and effort and patience throughout this entire process, as well as my nominators, Dr. David Workman, who is my physics teacher from school, and also Dr. Don Wacko, who was so kind and gracious as to read and provide comments on my paper while he was still on vacation, too. I would also add, like many other people, that I really would like to thank the Davidson Institute and Bob and Jan Davidson for not only this honor, but their work on the behalf of gifted and talented students. And I would just also like to add, last of all, that I'm really happy and grateful to have met all the other Davidson Fellows and Laureates who are just so smart and funny and talented and just amazing, and have made the last day and today really, really memorable. So thank you, everyone.
Our first $25,000 Davidson Fellow awardee is a mathematician, Nate Botman, a 16-year-old from Seattle, Washington. Nate?
Okay, so my speech is a bit shorter than the others, so prepare yourselves. So my project, it's titled Determining the Spectra of Solutions of the Nonlinear Schrodinger Equation. And I've developed a method for answering a question in the field of nonlinear dynamics, which is given a governing equation, which solutions of this equation are going to occur physically. It turns out that the answer is almost always, some of them will, some of them won't. It's valuable to know which of them will. Yeah, so as a sort of working example in my work, I proved that stationary solutions of the defocusing nonlinear Schrodinger equation are stable, which means they have a good shot of occurring. And it's a very general method, so for any integrable partial differential equation, which means essentially something with the Hamiltonian or some property conserved, this method will always work. And in terms of what I want to do with the fellowship, I'd like to use it to buy lots and lots of math and physics books. Yeah, what can I say, right? And to support my studies in Russia over the next few months, at the University of Washington over the next 2 years, and wherever I go after that. And I'd like to thank my professor at the UW, Bernard de Koning, for the huge amount of work he's given me, huge amount of help, not work, he's given me along the way. And then, of course, I'd like to thank my parents for all their help, and the Davidsons. Thank you.
In case you didn't catch it, Nate, the 16-year-old, is a junior at University of Washington, currently studying in Moscow, and he flew in from Russia for this award.
Michael Harwick is a 17-year-old young man from Bridgewater, New Jersey. Michael did a literature proposal for his submittal. Please come tell us about it.
So before I talk about what the subject of my portfolio was, I just want to address how amazing the past couple of days have been. Coming down here, I'm currently a freshman at Hamilton College, which is in upstate New York, and I kind of had to take the train over and pass through New York City and come down here, and I really wasn't sure what to expect. But just getting to meet a group of people who are so obviously dedicated in their respective fields and are so insightful and so intelligent has been kind of an exhilarating experience to see people who are as passionate about science or technology as I feel like I am about literature. So that being said, the portfolio that I submitted was entitled Highways, the Road is Existence. It consisted of 3 pieces. The first is an excerpt of an unfinished novel called The Sideshow Visions, which uses the vehicle kind of a dysfunctional family's search for their father's past to link basically the ideas of a circus and the modern conflict in Iraq with kind of a pop cultural assessment of my home state's history, New Jersey's history. Which sounds really weird, but I promise it works. Obviously, I'm here. The second is an excerpt of an unfinished screenplay, which is called Early Decision. I kind of used the college search that I was going through last year as another road story, this one focusing on a mother and son dynamic and a romance that kind of blossoms, not between them, but over the course of the couple of weeks, to answer questions about the nature of art and really about coming of age in a new millennium. And the final component is an excerpt from a poetry collection I'm also working on, which uses recollections of alien destinations to probe the question of what it means to be at home. All 3 components explore in one way or another the problem of communication, how we select the arbitrary words we use to express frustration, fear, love, and by contrast, very heavily how the negative space around these words can be used to mask our true emotions. But also the title is based around the concept of a highway. And I kind of felt that this was the perfect symbol for exploring that disparity between what's said and what's meant. On a highway, you're traveling in the same direction as other people, relatively speaking, and you can be therefore said to be like grouped with them. But you very seldom pause to think about the true motivating factor of your co-travelers. The constraints of your own car obviously make it difficult to know exactly what other people are thinking and where they're going. So because of the idea of travel, this kind of stuck as an iconic image in my mind, not only for this portfolio, but kind of for the past year of my life. So too, with the families, couples, lovers in my fiction, where they travel in the same direction toward or away from home, and need to choose how to fill the silences, whether through interaction or ignorance of one another. The project would have been absolutely impossible to partly finish without the support of my entire family. My grandparents, my parents, Alan and Susan, and my brother Stephen. They've always put their faith in my work and will, I'm sure, continue to do so for the rest of my life. I'd also like to thank my nominators, Judy Freeman for her editorial suggestions on numerous drafts over the years of hundreds of different things, Christina Greenberg for her guidance in writing the story of my own life, and Nicholas Patrazone for his constant willingness to read, point me in new directions, and inspire in me the desire to write, to express, and the sense of wonder necessary to write with meaning and purpose. Finally, thank you to the Davidson Institute for selecting the invisible persona of me on the basis of movies running through your head, thanks to my words. So I intend to use this fellowship to fund my education, hopefully at a graduate level. And in the coming year, I'm going to be actively pursuing publication, thanks in large part to the boost given me by the appreciation you have for my work. So thank you very much.
Danielle Lanten is a 17-year-old woman from Cedarhurst, New York. Due to a religious observance, Danielle is accepting her Davidson Fellows Scholarship with this recorded message. We have it?
Supercritical carbon dioxide, a phase of carbon dioxide that exhibits unique properties as a solvent. After exposure, the polymers have combined with one another, producing a material with superior properties. I'm currently in the process of patenting and publishing this technology. I am spending this year in Israel for religious studies, and when I return, I will be attending Yeshiva University and majoring in chemistry, with the goal of attending medical school in the future. I would like to thank Dr. Mary Rafalovich, Dr. Michael Binder, Mr. Mitchell Foreman, Seong Chen Park, and the Garcia Materials Science Department at Stony Brook University for their constant help and guidance over the past year. I would also like to thank my parents, family, and friends for all their continued love and support.
Danielle has already received her award.
Celeste Lipkeys is a 17-year-old young woman from Wesley Chapel, Florida. Celeste, please tell us about your Fellows Literature portfolio.
Hi, my name is Celeste Lipkeys, and I feel very, very, very honored to be standing here as a Davidson Fellow of Literature. First of all, thank you so much to Mr. and Mrs. Davidson for their enormous generosity, and to everyone at the Institute for all their hard work. My portfolio was titled Room to Pace, and it was primarily composed of poetry, but also contained short fiction and both critical and humorous essays. Some of the pieces I am most proud of include an emulation of Juan Rulfo's Pedro Páramo, a recipe for writing a poem, an analysis of the greenhouse poems of Theodore Roethke, and a poem about a man dealing with the diagnosis of a chronic illness. Putting together a portfolio of my work has shown me how much I truly love to write, and has inspired me to become even more passionate about creative writing as I begin my first year at Johns Hopkins University. I hope to someday become a medical researcher, science writer, and a published poet. I would like to thank all the amazing English teachers and workshop leaders who have mentored and encouraged me over the past few years. 3 of these wonderful writers wrote my recommendations for their fellowship, and endured numerous, and I mean numerous, nagging emails about faxing their forms in on time. For this, I am forever grateful. I'd also like to thank God who has carried me through the past few years. And lastly, I would not be standing here without the unconditional support of my parents. Their love of writing is contagious, and I would be very honored to one day become as talented as them. Thank you.
Yucheng Men is a 16-year-old young man from Madison, New Jersey. Yucheng, please tell us about your Fellows Award in Music.
I would first like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, Tacey Mosner, and Colleen, and everyone at the Davidson Institute for bestowing such a great honor upon me. Their dedication in providing such indispensable support to young students will be a continuous reminder of how individual gestures transform, influence, and enable the lives they touch. I know I will continue with this tradition by helping young artists wherever possible. We enter this world in sound and leave it in silence. And during this passage, music is an indispensable and transformative experience. Since early childhood in China, music has been part of my life. However, it was not until I experienced the magic and power of music that I was able to project and be understood as a messenger of an almost forgotten idea best expressed in an old German song. Heaven and earth may have to go, but music remains forever. My Davidson project is titled Reviving Classical Music Through Individualism, and it is part of the process of preserving the precious art of classical music. Musicians such as myself have the duty and privilege of contributing to its revival by carrying its unique and individualistic voice to younger generations. Music can teach them to be disciplined, persistent, and hardworking, since after all, playing an instrument requires one to overcome both internal and external impediments. This sense of diligence and persistence will help them overcome other obstacles in life. It only took 5 months to prepare the music for my project, but it took 12 years of learning, unremitting practice, and thinking to undertake it. I could not have started, much less completed this project without the love and dedication of many. First, I thank my parents. They have guided me and sacrificed for me during every one of my 16 years. And yes, I ignore their advices sometimes, but eventually, I find I need to bow to their insights. I must also recognize Dr. Yoheva Kaplinsky, who is my teacher at the Juilliard Pre-College School, Dr. Andrew Thomas, who is present today, and of course my mentor, Professor Zita Zohar, who is also present today. They talk about music and life, and they help to uncover my strengths and weaknesses, and believe in me during the inevitable times. I thank them for all the time that they have contributed. These 5 unique individuals gave me the core values emphasized by the Davidson Institute: integrity, partnership, perseverance, philanthropy, resilience, and professionalism. And also, I would like to thank and congratulate the 2007 Davidson Fellow Laureates and Davidson Fellows. I've listened to all your descriptions of all your projects in the past few days, and I've realized I really have to open my textbooks and study when I get home. Yes, it was pretty intimidating listening to everyone describe their projects. Thank you again for this great honor.
We had the pleasure last night of hearing him play, and it was amazing.
Miss Janet Song is a 15-year-old young woman from Norristown, Pennsylvania. Janet, please tell us about your Fellows Science Project.
Good evening. My name is Shannon L, and I submitted a project in the category Science, which is entitled Development of a Urine Test for the Early Detection of Cancer. Basically, it has been previously shown that urine contains short-length circulatory DNA from possible tumor sites. Thus, with the guidance of my mentor and others, I developed a method that could preferentially isolate the short-length DNA from the other contaminants and other DNA in urine, and also demonstrated that this isolated DNA greatly increased the sensitivity to detect a known cancer-associated mutation. The use of a urine test for cancer screening would be less invasive, less unpleasant, and less expensive than current screening tests, allowing for higher compliance rates and for the early detection of cancer. In the future, a panel of biomarkers needs to be developed in order to utilize this assay for the mass market. To say the least, I am extremely honored to receive this award and humbled to be part of a group of such distinguished young minds. Hearing everybody's speeches, I feel like even though I'm doing a science project, I really do need to figure out what is going on in the physics world. And of course, this scholarship will be extremely instrumental in allowing me to further my education beyond high school. And I'd like to thank my parents and my brother for their encouragement, my mentor, Dr. Timothy Block, for his guidance, my nominators, Dr. Dean Brenner and Mr. Robert Helm, for their support, and of course, the Davidson Foundation and Mr. and Mrs. Davidson for their overwhelming generosity in making such an opportunity available. So thanks once again.
5 of tonight's recipients will be recognized as Davidson Fellow Laureates, a title accompanied by a $50,000 scholarship. The first laureate is Alexandra Cortez, a 17-year-old young woman from Davis, California. Alexandra, please tell us about your science project.
Hello, my name is Alexandra Cortez. I can't even express tonight how honored I am to be a recipient of such a great honor for my work in the field of chemistry and biology titled Bright Luminescent Silicon Nanoparticles for Biological Applications. For my research, which I performed at the University of California at Davis, I developed a new approach to synthesize silicon nanoparticles and nanorods with luminescent properties. I further explored the applicability of these minuscule dots of silicon as novel biomedical imaging agents for cancer therapy and the tracking of biological processes in the human body. I'm hoping to continue my research next summer at the University of California at Davis, and hopefully at Harvard as well, where I'm currently a freshman, potentially also a chemistry concentrator. I can't thank the Davidson Institute, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, and all of the staff at the Institute for putting so much time and thought into these awards, and especially in reading all our very long applications. I'm so grateful to receive this scholarship, as personally it will help my dream of attending college possible. As I begin a new chapter in my life, I'd like to thank my parents, Maria and John Cortez, who are here tonight, for all of their support from the time when I was learning how to walk. And trust me, this is a big deal because despite the fact that I was jabbering away in 2 languages, apparently I'm told I got stubborn about walking, so this is a big deal. And now to helping me get ready and sending me off to college with more love than I really think can exist in the whole world. I'd also like to thank my mentors at UC Davis, Professor Susan Kalsrich and Dr. Andrea Goforth, for believing in me and supporting me at every step of the way on my project, even when I myself felt discouraged and dispirited. I'd also like to thank one more person who couldn't be here tonight, Mrs. Rena Borton of Davis, California, who I consider not only a mentor and a friend, but also second family. Without her, I really don't think I would have had the unshakable belief that I do hold today, that with the spirit of just one individual, you can really make a difference in solving the many problems that are facing our common humanity and the world today. And just finally, I'd like to thank all my fellow fellows. It's been an amazing 2 days meeting you guys, and everyone's been so great. I'm looking forward to hopefully reconnecting with you guys in the future, which I'm sure we all will, and good luck. Thank you.
Alexandra also plays a mean game of tennis. So, there you go.
Our next Davidson Fellow Laureate is Yale Fan, a 15-year-old young man from Beaverton, Oregon. Yale, please tell us about your Fellows Technology Project.
As part of a promising branch of research in the rapidly expanding field of quantum computing, my technology project, titled Applications of Multivalued Quantum Algorithms, used principles of quantum mechanics to determine more efficient encodings of information for algorithms that could potentially be implemented on a quantum computer. Specifically, I found that generalizing algorithms to different systems of logic, or radices, number bases, can greatly reduce both the time and space complexity of existing quantum algorithms for a myriad of computing applications, not to mention improve upon the comparatively restricted binary algorithms of classical computers today. As always, I'd like to thank my parents for their constant support, and my mentor at Portland State University, Dr. Marek Prakowski, who's always provided a very open and friendly environment in which I could work, and when I was attending his seminars. Also, my computer science teacher at school, Andrew Merrill, for his very stimulating discussions. Dr. Michael Miller of the University of Victoria, who took the time from his busy schedule to review, critique, and appreciate my work. And lastly, Jacob D. Biamonte, whom I met as an undergraduate student at Portland State University and who's currently a visiting researcher in quantum algorithms simulating chemistry at Harvard University. And lastly, I'm also very grateful that the Davidson Institute has recognized my work, and their scholarship will certainly help in my pursuit of higher education and research, preferably in physics.
Let's see, what was I doing at 15? I don't know. It would take me 15 years to do what he did, but at any rate. Madhavi Giovanni is a 17-year-old young lady from Starkville, Mississippi, and has done a very interesting project in science, and we'd like to hear about it.
Good evening. I would like to begin by thanking the Davidson Foundation for their generous support of my research and for allowing me the opportunity to be here tonight. My research in medicine involves work with an opportunistic pathogen called Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Pseudomonas aeruginosa is interesting in medicine because it can exist in two forms: a rough form that's commonly found in the environment, and a mucoid form, which forms when the bacteria infects people. So it forms this thick biofilm that surrounds the cell and prevents antibiotics from penetrating through it and coming in direct contact with the bacterium. Because antibiotics are incapable of penetrating through the biofilm, Pseudomonas infections are a major source of infection and death among immunocompromised individuals, like people with AIDS, cancer, cystic fibrosis, the elderly, burn victims, and people undergoing surgery. By combining the traditional Indian medicine called Ayurveda with molecular biology techniques, I was able to identify that a plant called Terminalia chibula contains compounds capable of penetrating through this biofilm and killing the fully grown cell. I hope to further this research by identifying the compounds responsible for Terminalia tubula's antimicrobial properties, and ultimately I hope to develop an inhaler or antiseptic spray that could be used to treat people with these chronic infections. None of my research would have been possible without the tremendous help and support of my parents, teachers, and mentors, especially Dr. Lakshmi Polakat at Mississippi State University, Ms. Julia Tang from the Life Sciences and Biotechnology Institute, and Drs. Mary Davidson, Gil Katzenstein, and William Odom from the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science. Thank you.
Todd Kramer is a 17-year-old young man from Port Jefferson, New York. He performed and created a music portfolio. Todd, please come tell us about your music portfolio. Excuse me. Thank
you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Todd Kramer, and my project is called Finding My Voice Through Music. I selected pieces for a portfolio that I composed over a period of 5 years to show how I progressed in developing a unique musical style. Included are a suite for violin and cello, a cello sonata, a string quartet, and a rhapsody for French horn and piano. When I was admitted to the Juilliard School Pre-College Division as an 8-year-old cello student, I had no idea that composing my own music was even a possibility. Through my immersion in the intensely stimulating and challenging musical environment at Juilliard, I became aware of a desire to write music that musicians would enjoy performing and listeners would like to hear. My hope is to make a meaningful contribution as a contemporary composer. Being named a Davidson Fellow Laureate is an incredible honor for me. I am already using the scholarship at Princeton University, and I feel truly grateful to the Davidsons for their commitment to education. I would not be receiving this award today were it not for the extraordinary musical training I received through 2 outstanding programs, the Juilliard Pre-College Division and the Proman Music Program. I had a wonderful composition teacher at Juilliard, Erica Wazen, who guided me over a period of 7 years and helped me develop my musical voice. Andrew Thomas, Director Emeritus of the Juilliard Pre-College Division, was an important advisor throughout my studies at Juilliard, offering helpful feedback about my work from the time I began composing at age 10. Itzhak and Toby Proman, co-directors of the Proman Music Program, provided me with life-transforming musical experiences in their one-of-a-kind music camp and year-round mentoring program for gifted teens. Their sponsorship of an annual contemporary music concert, in which my own works were performed by outstanding musicians and friends, enabled me to bring new pieces to a large and encouraging audience. Patty Monson, Director of the Contemporary Music Program at the Proman Music Program, helped me to develop as a performer of both my own works and those of established contemporary composers. My cello teachers, Bonnie Hampton, Ronald Leonard, and Andrei Emelianov, are all avid supporters of contemporary music, and they encouraged my composition studies. The performers of the pieces in my Davidson portfolio were not only extraordinarily talented, they worked very hard to learn my music. I was very fortunate to have them play. Finally, I would like to express my thanks to my family. My parents have been there at every step of my development as a musician and as a person. My older brothers, one a cellist and the other a violinist, have given me honest and helpful, if not always kind, feedback about my work. I consider myself especially lucky to have 4 grandparents who have attended my concerts from the time I was 4 and who are thrilled to be at the ceremony this evening. Thank you once again, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, for your support and recognition.